So, it's recording. So,
coming to Sweden so many years ago, the first thing I did when I got here, since I didn't know where to go, I went to the office of the newspaper, Dagens Nyheter, and they said, help, I want asylum. They looked at me like an idiot and said, go to the police. Went to the police finally, heard from others that I had no chance to stay here. I wasn't a war deserter, I was a war resister, and Sweden at that time was only taking people who were deserters. So I thought, in a couple of months I gotta leave this place, but I'll ask for asylum. Someone said there was a church, an American church-run organization helping out asylum seekers from the States. And I went there and I met a young man, a colleague who had been here maybe a year or so before me, and the first thing he said when I got there was, this is a very cold country and you need vitamins and there's no sunshine, so eat a lot of oranges. And I thought, holy Christ, vitamin C is the most important problem right now. I don't know what my future is going to be. I don't know if I can stay here or not. I don't know if I'll ever get a job, if I'll ever see my family again, or if I'll get permission to stay. And if I don't get permission to stay, where the hell am I going to go? And I ate a lot of oranges.
so do you feel yourself as being more Swedish or more American, or is that not an issue?
You know, the old. I had an American woman who taught social anthropology, a course that I took, and I remember when she told me that. I mean, now it's so clear about when you move country, when you move society, you are neither the one nor the other. You are own original combination of the two.
It's great to have that perspective. Things that I think I wouldn't even have thought about.
Yeah.
I would never have been able to know about.
Let me ask you a question now. Are you planning to move to Sweden and have a family and all that stuff here?
Is there an immigrant catharsis? Seems like many who have embraced this catharsis, this letting go, have really become happy. But those that stubbornly refuse, hold on, become bitter and cynical. Your life must be purified in the flames. I am currently struggling with this catharsis, but maybe I am looking for peace too soon. I must write the story of my new life with the charcoal embers of my catharsis, but its flames have not yet gone. It is important to search for something meaningful. I too am frustrated with cynics and am afraid that I may become one. So we must create the meaning ourselves as a human experience.
But this idea about doing the documentary about American deserters and exiles, and was that something that happened when you got here, or that was already before? You already knew about that, of course.
I had always envisioned that if I chose to go to Sweden, that I would simply stay there. I didn't understand that that isn't so easy in many countries. I had gone to the consulate in Boston and asked about if I want to immigrate to Sweden, what do I have to do? You have to have a job and you have to apply for a work permit outside of Scandinavia, and if you go just now, then you can only stay there for 3 months. But I decided not to be discouraged by it. I decided, like any American, that there always has to be another way that isn't according to the rules, which I think is a very American way of looking at the world, that there's both the broad legal way of doing things, and there's always a back door. And if you just learn what the code is, you can find the back door. So I decided I'll go and I'll learn the code.
What I'd really like to get at is the psychological process of expatriating and becoming an immigrant in another country.
Especially since I had that interview with you, I've been starting to look at things in a very different way. You can only have the immigrant experience if you're an immigrant, and it's a very rich experience, but that's if you go through all the pain.
Yeah, but how do you know when the fire is out, you know?
I can understand that for you, you may feel that maybe you don't have to, that you can jump over some of the learning steps, but I don't think anybody can. I don't think there is a shortcut. I don't think there are shortcuts, because it has so much to do with identity.
Yeah.
And even if you feel like I think every single one of my friends who are, for the most part, immigrants from all different parts of the world, what we all have in common is we never felt at home where we were. So it's never just a coincidence when you end up emigrating.
Mm-hmm.
It never really is a coincidence. There's something else there.
One day, fiddlers from a distant land visited, and Shmuel was so taken with their music that he hastily arranged concerts, a radio program, and an LP for them. On leaving, they invited him to visit their country some 4,000 miles away. I'm answering your question. And that was how Shmuel, 41, came to make his first trip outside of America and discovered a socialist land where everyone was equal and no one starved. This land pleased him so well, fitted his dreams so perfectly, that after 4 years of scrimping, he saved enough money to leave family, Greenwich Village, and America. This little park, Maria Toria, so like little things of our life took place here. And Philemon used to go there in the swings. So my life is in this place. I sit here writing. I can sit here writing for 2 hours and nobody interrupts me, asks me what I'm doing. I bring my grandson here now, so he can have the same experience that his mother had. So this is my social life here, outside of my store.
I was going to ask you before, and I'm sure I've asked you, do you have siblings?
Yeah, I do.
Do they understand you wanting to do this
Yeah.
immigration thing, emigrating to Sweden?
Well, I would say actually really for me, the only thing that causes me hesitation is my family. So I'm very close to them, and I would like to be close to them. And so I would like to live in like the same city as them. You know, with my parents would be nice.
Mm.
So that's an issue. And that's the one thing, I don't know how to resolve that yet. I have no idea. That's where I am right now. Like, I have no idea how to resolve that. And so my parents are dealing with a lot of stuff, and now I'm living in another country, in another continent.
Mm.
So I feel I have a lot of guilt because of that, actually. And there's nothing in me that compels me to move back to the U.S. Except for my family.
But there were a lot of working class people, harder to get by when you don't have a university degree, when you're not used to being abroad, when Sweden looks like America. The people look very similar, but it isn't at all. And there's different rules and different difficulties in surviving here. And even though a lot of people speak English, if you don't speak Swedish, you don't get a job even as a taxi driver. And a lot of people living on welfare getting very alienated, saying, how can I not fit into this society? Different way of dealing with women. Those heterosexuals, Swedish women, very independent, didn't take a lot of guff the way the American war resistors thought they should, because women demand their rights in Sweden much more than in many other countries. A lot of people had trouble with that, dealing with that kind of basis. Letters. Got letters from home. We all got letters from home. I got good letters from my mother saying, keep on. The CIA has been knocking on the door, wondering where you are, and she says, I am in the jungles of Brazil. And I was in Brazil for a while, in Peru before I came here. He's in the jungles, you'll never find him. I remember a black man told me he got a letter from his family saying, where the hell are you? There's 7 brothers and sisters, everybody's having economic troubles. You're the oldest one in the family. Come home, what are you doing over there? Paradise life in Sweden, come back. And when he got letters like that, he didn't know what to do. Another guy got a letter saying, we've got a family history of doing our service in the military. What the fuck are you doing? Why aren't you here? We have to tell all our neighbors that you're on holiday or that you're studying. We don't dare to tell them that you're a war resistor. When you get letters like that, come home or you're a scandal for the family. You don't get the same push. And I was glad to get letters from my mother that said, don't bother with these people here. You're doing the right thing. That kind of support meant a great deal.
Yeah, that's great. Was it difficult though, being away from home?
Yes and no. Being in exile against your will is killing. My grandmother died. I got a telegram saying, please come home, the funeral, we're waiting for the funeral. I got the same time another telegram saying, where are you? 2 weeks have gone by, you haven't answered, we've gone without you. And I thought, should I have gone over to the Canadian border and try to smuggle myself into this funeral in Chicago? Am I taking a risk? Or will I never get to that place and end up in jail for 5 years instead? When you're down, when things are going bad, you wonder, have I made a good choice? When Sweden, which is in some ways a beautiful country, in some ways a boring country, is this the right place for me? Yes, when you're really feeling off, exile hurts. When things are going well and the sun is shining and it's not dark at 2 in the afternoon, when things are going well, exile is easier to bear. But when you lose a part of yourself, that's the price you pay for exile. But it's a high price. No living, no choice is ever without a price. And exile, self or forced, is always a high price to pay.
So I think I do more feel that sense of responsibility.
But I've talked about this whole issue of family and with my friends who are immigrants, that there are always some issues. I mean, it isn't a coincidence that you put an ocean between yourself and your family. That doesn't just, oh, whoops, how did that happen?
Yeah.
There's some reason that just happens, because it doesn't just happen.
I'm not just speaking of myself, but someone who's American thinking about coming to Sweden from the perspective of someone who has expatriated and has had that experience for a long time. And then what would you say to someone who is thinking of doing that?
One shouldn't come here if they think they're going to escape from hypocrisy or from unfair treatment. In fact, there are a number of things that are harder here.
As if I take 10 people at random, I have 4 who are disappointed in their level of achievement in Sweden, disappointed in the system, but nevertheless, none of them have taken the step to move back to the States. Now, that doesn't go to say that for we Americans, Sweden is absolutely the best. I don't think it is. I think for the average educated American, I really, unless you're willing to completely change your career, like I had to do with film. You know, I was in law, then I went into film, media, and I couldn't make it in film media. Just no doubt about it. Just couldn't make it. They wouldn't hire me. They would give me the freelance jobs. I ended up back in law, and I was very fortunate that I had that basic issue. So you have to be aware of that fact, that if you're going to make the step over here, and depending on your age, because you're going to have to make huge, tremendous changes. And if you're not ready to make those huge, tremendous changes, then you're going to end up in trouble.
People have to take responsibility for their lives. So I have always said, it's like it doesn't matter where you are. It's up to you to make your life work. If you're in the States, you're in Sweden, or in Cucamonga, you know, it's up to you to see to that your life is working. That's it, you know. So in that respect, it's not, I don't think there's one society is better than another. I would not put it in that terms. I would put it in the terms of how well you are in dealing with creating the life you want to have. Getting in touch with that and then going for it and seeing to that it happens. That's what counts more than where you are. Then there's always certain things that are more conducive or not, but it's like you can make your life work wherever as long as that is your determination to do that. If you're committed to finding excuses for why things aren't working, then you can also be anywhere. So essentially what I've learned from my life experience is that it's not where you're living that counts, it's what you do with your life and how you do it. That's what matters. And how you deal with yourself and the people around you. That's what matters. Then you can choose the field you're going to play ball on, you know. But you got to kick it.
Liminal space is one thing I'm really interested in. When I was teaching, I'd say, okay, I would write liminal space, and we're talking about the thresholds and neither being in nor out. I said, when you're on the threshold, you're not in the room, you're not outside of the room. You're forced to challenge yourself, or otherwise you go under.
Yeah, that's true.
And you do anyway in life. It isn't just like only immigrants do that, but it's more concrete. The challenges are always on a daily basis more concrete. And I've learned to honor liminal space and in its best moments. But it's a very lonely place to be too.
Yeah.
Because it isn't belonging, but then, like we said before, this whole idea of belonging is so illusory.
Did you ever feel like you were in that space before you became an immigrant?
Yeah, I told you that my friends, and that's why they are my friends, that's what we all have in common, that we always felt a little bit outside. Like, why do I feel so different than the others? Yeah, we share that. It's what I said before. It's not a coincidence when you're an immigrant if you're not forced because of starvation and war and all these kinds of things.
I am not interested in sensational. What I need is something meaningful. This makes me a stranger, a foreigner everywhere. There is no place where I feel at home, comfortable completely. I don't miss the US. I don't particularly like it because I have felt my whole life rejected by it. This rejection has been profound and has had a radical effect on my life. I need a different way of being than what I found in the US. Maybe Sweden is not different than the US, but to me it offers something very different. I am still figuring out what that could be, but what is most important in my life are the relationships that you build. Maybe Sweden represents to me the possibility to build new kinds of relationships with terms with which I do not feel betrayed, where I may be a foreigner, but am not a stranger. The only way to reject cynicism is to be at least somewhat naive. Sincerity is the only way to empathy, and empathy is the only way to these new relationships, and then to an inner peace. Though the concrete of this reality has not yet formed, I am filled with optimism for the home it will provide.